Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today, I'm wanting to do something a little bit different. I'm going to read some of your true scary Reddit stories that you've posted, while playing some Minecraft in the background. This is a new hardcore world with some quality of life mods. The idea is to enjoy some relaxing gameplay while listening to some stories in the background. If you like this idea and want to see more, please let me know, and I'll continue the series with the same world. Alright, let's start off with story 1. Although it doesn't really seem like it, this happened quite a while back, probably over 10 years ago. I was in the later years of high school and was home alone. My parents were at a wedding that required them to stay at a hotel, and my brother worked night shift. At the time, my family lived in a very well-known East Coast city in a blue-collar neighborhood that was starting to take a nosedive. As a teenager, I was a bit of a loner. I wasn't a nerd or anything. I was a big dude who had friends and went on dates, but I'm just a natural introvert. So I cherished the rare alone time that I got. This weekend, I was looking forward to engaging in my normal empty house routine. Play some games on the big screen TV, then order a late takeout dinner, and pig out while watching some Dragon Ball Z. Then around 2 a.m, fall asleep on the couch with my older dog, Cecil. Cecil was a beagle who was as old as the hills, and had been in our family for about 8 years. He was quiet and peaceful, and spent his time begging for food and sleeping. Unlike most beagles, Cecil never howled or barked. He was more than content to rest his head on your lap and spend the night there. Anyway, back to the story. It's approximately 1 a.m. I had just finished the last slice of pizza and was dozing off on the couch when I heard a bang coming from the back alley. I didn't really think anything of it. Anyone who has lived in a city knows noises happen all the time. Cecil's head popped up off my lap and the hair on his back stood up. He was always a little bit skittish, so I calmed him down and started to doze off again. No more than 2 minutes later, I heard another bang, and Cecil did something I've never seen him do before. He leapt off the couch and ran like the wind towards the door leading to the basement, barking and growling like a dog twice his size. The look on his face reminded me of a German Shepherd canine unit. I'd never seen him like that before, which got my adrenaline pumping. Through the dog's barking, I can now make out a persistent banging. There was a rarely used door in the basement that led to our back alley. It was old and rusted and was hard to open, even with a key, and it made a lot of noise. I suddenly realized that someone was trying to break into my house through my basement door. Quick little bit of context for anyone who hasn't lived in a bad neighborhood. If someone tries to get into your house and moves on after they realize the door is locked, they want your stuff. If someone is persistently trying to get into your house despite the door being locked, they want you. Knowing this, I rush upstairs to grab the heavy wooden baseball bat that I keep under my bed for situations like this. Then, I head down to my basement. I probably should have ran, but I was a macho teenager with a tough guy complex. And plus, I really had nowhere to go. While I'm heading down the stairs to the basement, Cecil blows past me with the speed and aggression of a dog half his age. Suddenly, I hear a man's voice say, "Oh fuck," and the banging stopped. I didn't call the cops or anyone else, which was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. I just sat up for the rest of the night with the bat in hand. My brother came home that morning, and I told him what happened. We went to the basement door to take a look, and when we gave it a tug to open it, the door fell off the hinges. This psychopath was one good shove away from getting into my house, but old Cecil scared him off. I'm pretty sure that lazy, fat old dog saved my life. When I tell this story to people, they dismiss his actions as a dog doing what a dog was supposed to do. But when I tell you that Cecil never barked or moved that fast in his life, you can take that to the bank. It was almost like he knew the urgency, like he knew that door was going to give. A few years ago, we had to have him put down because he just had no will to live anymore. Before the injection, I got a moment alone with him. I thanked him one last time for his friendship and for what he did that night. At this point, I'm a grown man with a wife and kids. I'm convinced none of that would have happened without old Cecil. Thanks, buddy. I still miss you. I was living in a rural area in Oklahoma with my mother at a small lake house. I'm probably 10 or 11 at this time. One night, I'm sleeping in my room when I randomly and abruptly wake up for no reason. This was not normal for me, and I felt very uneasy. The only sound I could hear was my mother snoring in the next room on the couch. I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep, but my need to use the bathroom was growing more and more urgent. So I grudgingly forced myself to head to the bathroom. The bathroom is on the other side of the house, around a corner and past the kitchen, and finally down a long hallway on the right. So after I made the trip and finished my business, I flipped off the light switch and started heading back to bed. That's when I heard the distinct click of the light switch, and I saw the glow of the bathroom light in the hallway. Terrified, I slowly turned around, just to witness the light in the bathroom start clicking on and off. Finally, it shut off completely. In the dark of the hallway, my eyes began to make out a white shape near the end of the hall. It was around my size, but crouched on the floor. At this point, I'm frozen to the spot, and my mind begins realizing that no one else is home except for my mum and me. Then the white shape begins whispering in a quiet man's voice. "Help. I'm lost." I remember wanting to scream for my mum, but I couldn't. And instead, I barely said, "No." Before this thing starts running at me on what sounded like all fours, I quickly ran through the kitchen and around the corner before running to my sleeping mother, shaking her awake. I remember saying, "Mom, it's coming," and my mother's eyes going from dazed to alert in an instant. She asked me what I was doing and what was going on, and I saw her eyes look over my shoulder before she screamed. Remembering her scream still makes my blood run cold. Never have I ever heard pure terror like that in my life, even to this day. She grabs me by the arm and pulls me into my room and slams the door. She holds me in her arms with her back pressed against the door as we listen. It sounded like this thing was running around in circles in the kitchen. The kitchen had a sliding glass door to the outside, which sounded like it was thrown open and then slammed. We sat there horrified until daybreak. I was sent to my grandmother's in the next town for a while after that, and I never set foot in that house again. Years later, my mother said she went walking around the property after the incident and came across a small burial site with 3 headstones that each belonged to children from the early 1900s. It freaks me out because what I heard that night was a man's voice. It was so unnatural. My mum still won't tell me what she saw behind me and what made her scream. She tells me she's afraid it will know we're talking about it and it will come back. This was the first of many weird things that has happened to me in my life. I'm 16 and I work at the local grocery store. I've had the job for about a year now. Since I'm still in high school, I don't work during the day. I usually get scheduled for 3 weekday shifts, mostly closing from 6 to 10. This past Wednesday seemed like a normal night. It was around 9, maybe 9:30, and I was just waiting for my shift to end. I was up near the front of the store restocking cans when I noticed a man walking in. Now, I'm not great at guessing ages, but he looked like he was around 40. He was average height, maybe 5'10", and had this really pale skin, like he hadn't been outside in a really long time. His clothes didn't look dirty or anything, but they felt off. Almost like they didn't really fit right. Like he had put on someone else's outfit. He was wearing a plain grey hoodie and black jeans, but the hoodie sat too tight around the neck and the sleeves were too short. What caught my attention was the way he moved. He looked stiff. Like inhumanly stiff. He was walking as if he didn't have any joints, just kind of rigid and unnatural. His arms hung straight at his sides, barely swinging, and his feet hit the floor hard with every step. It creeped me out a little bit, but I ignored it and I kept working. A few minutes later, I finished and my manager told me to restock some more things near the back of the store. So I grabbed the cart and I headed back. And then the man appeared again. Same strange walk. He looked like he was searching for something but had no idea what it was. When he noticed me, he walked over and asked where the soda was. His voice was haunting, cold, flat. There was no emotion behind it. It made me feel really uneasy. Up close, his face looked wrong. Not scary, just wrong. His skin was smooth in a way that didn't look natural, almost plastic. His eyes were sunken, but not in a tired way. They just looked hollow. And the weirdest part was how he blinked. It was really slow, like someone acting what blinking should look like. I told him what aisle it was in, and then he did something that really freaked me out. He repeated my exact sentence, word for word, and then said, "Thank you." This might not sound super weird, but in the moment, it felt really off. I finished up and went back to my manager. I looked around for the guy, but I couldn't find him anywhere. He must have left. I asked my manager if she'd seen him, but she said no. I asked the cashier a bit later, and he said that he noticed the weird walk, but he didn't buy anything. When I went home, I tried to forget about it, but I had trouble sleeping. I kept thinking about his face. It was uncanny. Like a copy of a real person. It just didn't feel right. It's been a few days, and I still can't get his face, or the way he walked, out of my head. This happened back in the fall of 2016. I live in a very small and rural community where everyone knows everyone. The state that I live in allows deer hunting during the first week of October. Sustenance hunting is very important in the culture of my area. This fall, I was lucky enough to have drawn a buck tag. I had made plans to hunt on my grandmother's farm in the evening. Given that I'm a smaller woman, I had asked my husband to go with me in case I killed something. He could help me pack it out. However, he couldn't go due to work obligations. Fine, no problem. I've hunted this farm many times by myself. I know it like the back of my hand. I strapped on my boots, grabbed my rifle and binoculars, tucked my cell phone into my pocket, and made my way to the Jeep. My grandmother's farm consists of corn bordering an alfalfa field along a river. Between the river and the farm are lines of old growth trees. This is the perfect place to fill it with a buck tag. I parked my Jeep about a mile up the river from the fields, then began walking along the tree line towards the area where the deer had mostly been feeding. At the opposite end of the field, there was a large haystack where all the harvested alfalfa are stored. As I saw it coming into my field of view, I felt the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I kneeled down and viewed the area through my binoculars. I could see a very tall, large man walking briskly towards me from behind the haystack. I knew for a fact that I was supposed to be the only one hunting on this farm. Something inside me told me I needed to get out of this area as fast as I could. I initially tried to turn around and walk back down the trees to my Jeep. But given that I have rather short legs, this guy was quickly closing the gap. He was several hundred yards from me, so I decided to try to cross the river instead. But I found that the river was too muddy and deep for me to safely cross. I thought my only option was to attempt to get signal on my cell phone. When he walked across a small ditch and disappeared from my line of sight, I quickly darted into the corn and kept quiet. I could hear him walking closer and closer. I desperately tried to call my husband. Back then, the closest cell towers were over 30 miles away, and cell service was very spotty. I couldn't connect to my husband or to 911. By this point, the man was within 100 yards of me. I could hear him ripping corn out, stomping around, and loudly cussing. "Where the fuck did you go?" Another issue was it was getting dark quickly. I definitely did not want to be in the dark alone with this man. I watched him for a few minutes and was able to determine that he did not have a gun. After weighing my options, I decided to step out and see if I could de-escalate the situation, as I work in healthcare and work with mentally unstable people all the time. I stepped out of the corn. "Hey, I'm sorry if I interrupted your hunt or something. I didn't mean to cause any harm," I said with a sweet smile on my face. I made sure there was at least 80 yards distance between us. His eyes locked with mine, and it was obvious there was something wrong with this man. He stood about 6'5". His clothes were absolutely filthy, stained with what appeared to be his own waste and sweat. His shirt was torn and had dried blood on it. His face was crooked as if he had a stroke prior, and he slurred his words. "There you fucking are," he yelled. He reached down and grabbed a massive stick. I'm talking a stick at least 5 foot long. He could have easily killed me with this stick. I stood my ground and grabbed my rifle from my back and pointed it at him. He stopped holding the stick. We looked at each other for a second when he began yelling, "Do you know whose farm you're on?" "Yes, this is my grandmother's farm. I've hunted it my whole life." The veins began to pop out of my head. "No, it isn't. My wife is hunting in this cornfield and you ruined it. Because of you, she missed a huge buck, you stupid bitch." He became so enraged. He started making strange growling sounds and started spitting everywhere. I was running through the options in my head at this point when he suddenly started to lunge at me. I turned the safety off on my rifle and loudly stated, "Stop, I will shoot you if I have to." He froze in his tracks and just stared at me for about 30 seconds before dropping the stick. He grunted loudly with his eyes darting around. Listen, I don't want to have to do something we will both regret. I am very sorry I ruined your hunt. If you turn around and walk away from me, I will leave," I explained. I could see him thinking hard about what to do next, and he mumbled, "Fine." And he turned around, stomping back towards the haystack. My heart was about to beat out of my chest. I was not about to turn my back on this man. I watched until he walked a good distance away, and then I darted back into the corn. I thought back on how he said I spooked a massive buck and ruined his wife's hunt, but that didn't make any sense. I had a good view of the whole field, and there definitely were no deer present. I decided to look at him through my binoculars. I watched him climb up to the haystack and get into a small two-door white car. He quickly peeled out of the haystack parking lot. I was able to catch that the car had California license plates, but nothing more. I live nowhere near California. He took off down the road, and he was alone. No one else was with him in the vehicle. I ran back to my Jeep and locked myself in. I sped home as fast as I could, and I told my husband what happened. I had never seen this man before, and neither had my husband based off my description. We live in a community of about 200 people, born and raised. Here, we know everyone. I called our local sheriff, and they came out to take a statement. I took them out to the haystack where I saw his car parked, and we found a knife lying on the ground. Of course, nothing could be done, as I wasn't able to get a license plate or a name from the man. To this day, I still have no idea what the man's intentions were, even though I could guess on a few. It's been 8 years, and I still have never seen this man again. I also decided that I wouldn't go hunting alone anymore.